What if I told you that everything in your life, your success, your relationships, your peace, your chaos, is being shaped right now, not by your circumstances, not by your past, but by the one thing you're giving the most attention to, that thing you keep revisiting in your mind when no one's watching. The thought loop you keep feeding, the situation you keep analyzing, the fear you keep entertaining, that is where your focus is going. And where your focus goes, your reality grows. Every single time. Focus is not just about paying attention, it's about building. You're building your life moment by moment through the lens you choose to look through. If you constantly focus on lack, your mind starts filtering out abundance. If you focus on fear, the world around you will offer more reasons to be afraid. That's not magic. That's how your brain works. It's not just observing the world, it's interpreting it through the tunnel of your attention. People walk around every day thinking they're reacting to life, but they're not. They're reacting to what they're focused on in life. That's why two people can be in the same situation with the same obstacles, and one of them breaks while the other breaks through. One chose to zero in on the limitation, the other on the opportunity. One focused on what was wrong, the other on what was possible. Same world, different lens, different result. Your mind is like a garden. You don't have to plant weeds for them to grow. If you don't take ownership of your focus, your mental garden will get overrun. Not because you're weak, but because you're not intentional. Your energy will naturally follow whatever demands your attention the loudest, unless you train it otherwise. And most of what's loud in this world, it's not building you, it's draining you. You have to get ruthless about what you allow into your field of focus. You have to start asking, is this thought useful? Is this helping me move forward? Is this worthy of the life I'm building? Because what you allow in becomes what you act from. If you focus on negativity, you build from a place of doubt. If you focus on progress, you move with momentum. It's that simple. And it's that hard. Most people don't change their lives because they're too busy changing their surroundings. They rearrange things on the outside, hoping to feel different on the inside. But the truth is, the shift happens in reverse. You shift your focus, and your inner world changes. Then the outside starts catching up. Because your energy, your mood, your drive, all of it gets shaped by what you keep looking at. You want a better life, focus on better thoughts. You want deeper relationships, focus on showing up with presence. You want to rise, focus on rising thoughts, not because it's easy, but because it's effective. Your life is always becoming a reflection of your dominant focus, and that's the part no one can take from you. You may not control everything around you, but you do control what you center your awareness on. You have to understand, your focus is your power. The world knows it. That's why it tries to steal it every chance it gets. Every ping, every scroll, every trending crisis. It's all trying to pull your mind into a state of distraction. Because distracted people don't build. Distracted people don't rise. Distracted people stay busy being busy while their purpose starves quietly in the background. But focused people, they move differently. They don't chase noise. They choose stillness. They don't react to everything. They respond to what matters. Because they understand that focus isn't just how you get things done, it's how you shape your entire destiny. It's not just a tool, it's the whole blueprint. You become what you focus on. That's the rule. Always has been. So if your life isn't where you want it to be, don't just look at what's happening. Look at what you've been focusing on. Have you been feeding your fear more than your faith? Have you been dwelling in the past instead of designing the future? Have you been fixated on what's missing rather than what's possible? Your focus will tell you everything. And the moment you start focusing with intention, your life starts shifting with precision. Not all at once, but always eventually. Your reality doesn't change when you wish harder, it changes when you focus better. Because energy flows where attention goes, and results always. So aim your focus like your life depends on it, because it does. People talk a lot about distraction. They blame the phone, the noise, the notifications, the pace of life. But what if the real problem isn't that you're distracted, but that you've become disconnected from what actually matters? See, distraction is just a symptom. Disconnection is the root. When you're deeply connected to your vision, your values, your reason for being, distraction doesn't stand a chance. But when that connection weakens, anything can pull your attention. That's why you can spend hours scrolling, watching, consuming, and still feel restless, still feel unfulfilled. Because deep down, your soul knows you're not feeding the part of you that matters. And that emptiness isn't from doing nothing. It's from doing everything but the thing that fuels your purpose. That's the trap. Distraction feels urgent, but it rarely feels important. It feels busy, but it doesn't bring meaning. And here's the hardest truth to accept. It's not always the fault of the world for pulling you in. Sometimes it's you avoiding the weight of showing up for your calling. Because showing up for what truly matters isn't easy. It's demanding. It requires presence. It requires accountability. It requires you to look at yourself with brutal honesty and say, am I honoring the reason I'm here? The notifications are just a surface-level invitation. The real distraction is this subtle drift away from your why, that slow fade where your vision used to live clear in front of you, but now it's foggy, buried beneath 1,000 small choices that say, I'll focus later, I'll get to it tomorrow, I'm just tired today. But later becomes never, and tomorrow becomes a year from now. And tired becomes who you are instead of how you feel. You're not lazy, you're not weak, you're just disconnected. And the good news is, connection can be restored. Focus can be rebuilt, but it doesn't happen by downloading another productivity app. It happens by removing what you're really here to do. It happens by removing the excess and getting quiet enough to hear what your life has been whispering all along. The moment you reconnect with what matters, your energy changes, your choices sharpen. You stop chasing every loud thing and start moving toward the quiet truth inside you. That truth might not look impressive on the outside, but it will feel undeniable within. Because when you're locked in with your purpose, you no longer need constant stimulation. The work becomes the reward. The path becomes the fuel. You have to understand, distraction is a numbing device. It numbs you from the discomfort of knowing you're meant for more, but you're not living like it yet. And when you numb the discomfort, you also numb the drive. But when you face the disconnection directly, you start making choices from alignment instead of avoidance. And that changes everything. So how do you reconnect? You start by pausing, not running, not scrolling, just pausing long enough to ask the real questions. What am I doing this for? Who do I want to become? What truly matters at the end of the day? And am I living in alignment with that answer? And when the answers come, you protect them. You build boundaries around them. You design your days with those answers in mind. That's how you eliminate distraction. Not by controlling every input, but by strengthening your connection to the output you truly desire. When you wake up excited to contribute to something real, you won't waste hours on things that don't. When you're deeply in tune with your mission, you don't have time to entertain what pulls you away from it. It's not about being perfect, It's about being present. Present enough to recognize when you're drifting, present enough to admit when you've veered off course, and present enough to return to what matters with grace, not guilt. Because the goal is never to eliminate all noise. The goal is to raise the volume of what matters so loud that everything else fades. You don't need more discipline, you need more connection. Because when you're connected, your focus becomes automatic. Not because it's effortless, but because it's essential. That's the shift. From scattered to centered, from distracted to directed, from living on autopilot to living with purpose. And once you make that shift, you'll stop blaming distraction, because you'll realize you were never just distracted, you were just disconnected. And now that you're back, you'll never give your power away so easily again. Clarity doesn't arrive like a lightning bolt. It doesn't sneak up on you in the shower or fall into your lap because you lit a candle and meditated for 10 minutes. Clarity is not some magical sensation that stirs in your chest and suddenly reveals the path. No, clarity is earned. It is a discipline. It is a choice. It is forged in the moments when confusion is loud, when distractions scream for your attention, and you choose, deliberately, to sit still and seek truth anyway. We live in a time where the mind is flooded, not focused. You wake up and within seconds your attention is under attack. Notifications, headlines, opinions, and noise. And yet we've somehow been conditioned to believe that clarity should rise above that noise without effort. We expect it to guide us like an inner compass, when we haven't even quieted the mental storm long enough to hear its direction. But let me tell you something. Clarity is not what shows up after the storm. Clarity is the act of standing in that storm and separating the real from the irrelevant. It requires you to ask hard questions. What do I want? Who do I want to become? What actually matters? And then to sit with the discomfort that those answers often don't come instantly. They come through repetition, through confronting yourself, through being honest about what you've been avoiding and what you've been tolerating that doesn't align with who you're trying to be. And most people won't do that. Most people confuse busyness with purpose. They stay in motion, hoping clarity will chase them down. But clarity doesn't chase, it waits. It waits for you to stop running long enough to notice what you've been circling. It waits for you to silence the distractions and focus, not on everything, but on the one thing that keeps pulling at you when the world is quiet. That pull, that's your direction. That's the seed of clarity. But you only get to water it with discipline. Discipline to unplug from the things that scatter you. Discipline to say no when everyone around you wants you to say yes. Discipline to simplify, to remove the extra, the excessive, the convenient distractions that mask themselves as productivity but rob you of peace. And it's not easy. It's not glamorous. You don't get a trophy for it. But you get your life back. Clarity gives you the power to move like a warrior, to decide and not look back, to stop second-guessing because you've already done the internal work. You've trained your focus to follow vision, not feelings. That's the difference. Most people chase feelings. What feels right, what feels comfortable, what feels certain. But feelings are fleeting. One bad night of sleep and your whole emotional state shifts. You cannot build your future on a feeling, but you can build it on clarity. And clarity comes when you treat it as a discipline, not something that might show up one day if you're lucky, but something you show up for daily, like a ritual. It's when you make reflection non-negotiable, when you stop outsourcing your decisions to the opinions of others. When you look in the mirror and decide you're not going to live another year, another month, another week, out of alignment. That's the kind of discipline clarity demands. It's not about figuring everything out. It's about being honest enough to cut out what doesn't belong so you can see what does. And here's the truth: when you finally get clear, when you've filtered out the noise, the opinions, the doubts, you realize you always knew. Deep down, you always knew what direction was calling you. You just didn't trust yourself enough to listen. Clarity was never lost. It was just buried under everything you were afraid to let go of. So don't wait for clarity to arrive like some mystical sign. Build it like a warrior sharpens a blade, daily, deliberately, and with unwavering intent. Because when you discipline your focus, clarity doesn't just guide your life, it transforms it. Have you ever noticed how two people can walk into the same situation and see something completely different? One sees opportunity, the other sees danger. One sees growth, the other sees threat. And you might think the world is changing between their eyes, but it's not. The world hasn't changed. Their focus has. What they're seeing out there is nothing more than a mirror reflecting what's happening in here. The truth is, your world doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you focus on. And most people don't realize this. They think life is happening to them, but in reality, life is simply echoing what they've been focused on all along. If you carry fear, you'll see reasons to be afraid. If you carry hope, you'll notice reasons to believe. If you believe you're not worthy, you'll unconsciously seek out situations that affirm that belief and ignore or reject anything that challenges it. This isn't philosophy, it's a fact of lived experience. Your focus is like a flashlight in a dark room. Wherever you aim it, that's what you'll see. If you only point it toward what's wrong, that's all your reality will ever be, a loop of problems, setbacks, and limitation. But if you discipline yourself to shift that beam, to look for solutions, for growth, for purpose, even when it's not obvious, you begin to create a different world. Not because the world itself changed, but because you did. And what makes this powerful is that you don't need anyone's permission to redirect your focus. You don't need a title. You don't need the perfect timing, and you certainly don't need the approval of people who never dared to dream. What you need is presence. You need to wake up to the fact that what you focus on is what will expand, that your energy follows attention and your results follow energy. Think about the people who walk around convinced that nothing ever works out for them. What do they notice? Every delay, every small inconvenience, every moment of rejection or friction becomes a sign that they're right, that life is hard, that they're cursed. But it's not life affirming their story, it's their focus, narrowing their world until that's all they can see. Now, flip that. Think about someone who chooses to focus on growth. Even in pain, they're looking for the lesson. Even in silence, they're listening for inner clarity. They treat setbacks like stepping stones. They're not naive, they're focused. Focused on becoming, focused on rising. And the world reflects that back to them, not because it's easier for them, but because they've trained their eyes to see the breakthrough inside the breakdown. You get to do that too. But you have to stop blaming the mirror for what it's showing you. If you don't like what you see, don't shout at the glass. Change what's being projected. Change the story you're carrying. Change the thoughts you're rehearsing. Change the focus you feed every single day. It starts with awareness. Ask yourself, what am I focusing on the most right now? Is it empowering me or draining me? Is it pulling me forward or pulling me under? Because whatever you focus on consistently, you begin to attract more of, and you begin to embody it. Focus long enough on your limits, and your body will carry tension like it's holding the weight of those limits. Focus long enough on what's possible, and your presence will start to feel like possibility itself. It's subtle, but it's everything. People respond to your energy more than your words. Your energy is your focus made visible. When you're grounded, clear, and intentional, the world starts to meet you at that level, not all at once, but over time, consistently, quietly, like a mirror that's always been waiting to reflect your truth back to you. And don't forget, your focus isn't just creating your present, it's shaping your future. Right now. With every thought you entertain, every belief you reinforce, every choice you repeat, you're not just observing life, you're programming it with your attention. And once you truly understand that, once you stop outsourcing your reality to circumstance and start owning your focus like a weapon, you stop reacting and you start creating. So, if you want the world to show you something different, focus on something different. Believe deeper, expect higher, and let your inner world become so rich, so intentional, that the outer world has no choice but to rise up and reflect it.